Eddie Van Halen's place in the history of rock guitarists is undisputed, yet his brilliance was not a product of raw talent alone. It was nurtured and shaped by a diverse tapestry of influences, some of which may come as a surprise to those familiar only with his electrifying high-octane style. While Van Halen's own innovations reshaped the sound of modern rock, at the core of his playing lay deep respect for the musicians who came before him, guitarists whose methods, quirks and mastery fueled his own drive to push the instrument to its limits. Among those who Van Halen held in the highest regard was Allan Holdsworth, a name that may not be instantly recognizable to mainstream audiences, but one that resonates powerfully with musicians across the spectrum. Holdsworth, a British guitarist known for his staggering technical proficiency, was an artist who seemed to exist in a league of his own. Van Halen frequently referred to him as his favorite guitarist to watch live, a testament to the awe that Holdsworth's playing could inspire even in a musician of Van Halen's caliber. The pair met in 1982, forging a friendship that grew out of mutual respect, though their stylistic approaches could hardly be more different. Holdsworth's playing was a lesson in precision and fluidity. Where Van Halen's fingers danced across the fretboard with explosive energy, Holdsworth's hands moved with a strange kind of grace, his signature legato technique allowing notes to flow together in a way that defied conventional guitar playing. His use of complex harmonics and time signatures set him apart as a virtuoso whose approach was more akin to a jazz saxophonist than a rock guitarist. It was precisely this technical mastery that drew Van Halen in, influencing his own desire to expand the possibilities of what the guitar could do. Though they inhabited different musical worlds, there was a shared restlessness in their search for the unfamiliar, the unexplored. Holdsworth's influence on Van Halen was not overt. He never mimicked his style, but the British guitarist's adventurous spirit left a deep mark. Yet, if Holdsworth represented the heights of technical ability, Van Halen's more foundational influence came from a different corner altogether: Eric Clapton.
Is that satisfying?
Did you have like an inspiration when you were growing up? Like
Clapton was my hero,
Eric?
even though I don't play like him.
Clapton's playing, especially during his time with Cream, struck a chord with the young Van Halen, whose early years were spent meticulously learning Clapton's solos by ear. The power of Clapton's phrasing, his ability to say so much with so little, became a touchstone for Van Halen, though it was his work in Cream that held his fascination. Clapton's solo career, with its more refined and softer edges, failed to capture Van Halen's imagination in the same way. For him, it was the rawness and edge of Clapton's blues-drenched tone that resonated, simple, direct, and forceful. What Clapton gave Van Halen was a grounding in the essentials. It was a form of restraint, a lesson in knowing when not to play, when to let silence and space do the talking. But Van Halen, always the maverick, would combine this simplicity with his own boundless energy, transforming it into something more aggressive and innovative. The technique of finger tapping that would come to define his sound was a perfect example of this, an audacious reworking of classical guitar methods that allowed him to unleash cascades of notes with a fluidity and speed that had rarely been heard in rock before. But if Clapton's influence was about control and structure, Jimmy Page, the mastermind behind Led Zeppelin, embodied the opposite.
It was actually Jimmy Page who inspired me to do the funny stuff that I do on my guitar, which is he used to do this thing, live. He'd go, like that. And I'm going, wait, if you can go like that. I just kind of took the nut and took it up, and then I put this hand over here and changed it up, and just, you can do anything.
Van Halen admired Page's recklessness, the way his playing teetered on the edge of chaos without ever quite falling apart. There was a raw, primal quality to Page's playing that spoke to the more improvisational side of Van Halen's own musicianship. The two shared an instinctive understanding of the power of risk in performance, how a seemingly erratic approach could create moments of pure brilliance, unpredictable yet utterly captivating. Page, much like Van Halen, understood that sometimes the mistakes, the odd angles and the rough edges were where the magic happened. Where Van Halen's inspirations ventured far from the mainstream, his reverence for Les Paul and Leo Fender was rooted in tradition. In Van Halen's view, these two men were the architects of modern guitar music, giving birth to the instruments that shaped rock and roll.
What are you doing here? Hey, it's just a goddamn honor to be here with you.
Les Paul, with his groundbreaking work in multi-track recording and the development of the Gibson Les Paul, and Leo Fender, whose Stratocaster and Telecaster became the tools of choice for generations of guitarists, were figures to whom Van Halen owed a great debt. Without their innovations, there would be no electric guitar as we know it, and certainly no stage for Van Halen to craft his own brand of sonic alchemy. It is telling that Van Halen always returned to these foundational figures when discussing his craft. While he could speak at length about technique and showmanship, his respect for Les Paul and Fender hinted at a deeper understanding of the history of the instrument. It was as though he saw himself as part of a continuum, the latest in a long line of players and inventors stretching back decades, each building on what had come before. For all his trailblazing creativity, Van Halen recognized that his innovations were only possible because of the work of those who had set the stage. What emerges from a study of Van Halen's influences is a portrait of a musician who was both grounded in tradition and fiercely innovative. His playing drew from Clapton's precision, Page's daring, and Holdsworth's technical genius, yet it was entirely his own. By synthesizing these different elements, Van Halen managed to create a sound that was revolutionary, yet never disconnected from its roots. He understood that the guitar was more than just an instrument. It was a vehicle for expression, for pushing boundaries, but also for paying homage to the past. In his own way, Eddie Van Halen bridged the gap between the old and the new, taking the lessons of the past and transforming them into something fresh, something explosive, something unmistakably his. His admiration for figures like Holdsworth, Clapton and Page was not merely a reflection of their skill, but a testament to his own humility as a musician, one who, for all his genius, never stopped learning.